Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Familiar with the Matter, the show where I talk to people who know things about stuff. Today, we'll be discussing Canadian politics with Jen T. Maxey. This is a first for the series in the sense that we're not doing an episode regarding a vocation as sort of the grounding of the discussion. And also a word of warning, Canadian politics is kind of a umbrella term. We'll be discussing Canada and its political system to an extent, but also some social issues and such that are of a concern to Jen. She wants to start a more formal sort of broadcasting of conversations regarding what's going on in Canada as a concerned citizen. So, hello, Jen. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Scribe.
That's good. So tell us, Jen, what makes you familiar with the matter of Canadian politics?
Well, right now I'm familiar with the matter because I live smack down in the middle of the problem. I live in Alberta. I'm a seventh generation Albertan. We have a lot of history in our province. We were here 150 years ago before Canada even started, and we became a part of Canada in 1905. And we've had some problems over the last, I would say, since the 70s. That over the years hasn't, we would patch it up, and then it would fall apart again. So we're at that point again, where Canada might split apart, and it kind of came up behind out of nowhere, and so we're facing kind of a tough choice right now.
Yeah, as we were talking about the other day, what was it? I mean, as far as I recall, the border between the U.S. and Canada is the longest contiguous border in the world, between two countries at least, and I've always, and this is so me talking as a dumb Yankee, I've always regarded Canada as, in essence, the 51st state, because we've always been at peace. We don't have problems with Canada. The only time I ever hear about contentions between the U.S. and Canada deals with like NAFTA or trade issues or maybe some environmental issues or things like that, because we don't have things like any serious, as far as I know, again, maybe I'm missing something, but any serious problems with like gangs coming across the border or illegal drug smuggling, or I mean, I'm sure those things do happen to a certain extent, but not to an emergency degree. And consequently, because you guys are so, no offense, inoffensive, there's not a whole lot to pay attention to, it seems like. So even though you guys are our most open, let's say, ally and neighbor, just by geography and relationship, at the same time, it still feels like what goes on in Canada, the strife, if there is any, the politics and everything else, is essentially a black box to us here in the U.S. because we don't really know what's going on. So let's start with the big picture stuff. So you're ruled by the Queen. Right? That's my understanding. You guys are still subject to the Queen showing up and saying, do this, and you have to do it, right?
So that's not really the case anymore.
Okay.
That used to be the case. What we have is a Governor General, and the Governor General kind of acts more like a in-between person in the case that our political parties can't work things out between each other. The idea is we don't give anything to the Queen. She handed those rights down to our Prime Minister, and he's the one who is doing that now. The General. Our Governor General is just there to make sure that, if we're on the verge of splitting, they can step in and be like, okay, let's try to work things out. So in a sense, they're still stepping in where they're not really necessary.
So does the Britain and the monarchy have anything to do with Canada anymore, or is it just sort of like window dressing?
It's window dressing. Okay. It has been for a long time. That's not to say they don't influence us, but it's not in terms of legal law.
Okay. So now, again, correct me. You guys are run under a bicameral parliamentary system?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's see, is this where I should bring up like the parties and the groups and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to try to screen share this little chart, and of course, I'm still getting used to the wonderful world of. Let's see, we want that, yes, but we want that. Okay, so these are all of the provinces. Hopefully, everybody can see this now. I'll check over on YouTube to make sure I'm not missing something.
Perfect.
Yeah, because I gotta check. It's live TV, everybody. There's always something going on. Okay, so there's all the provinces and there's all the percentages and everything else. Now, just again talking like a dummy. Each province. I mean, in the United States, each state is its own technical sovereign state, but we all sort of feel very, very unified. There's not really like, I mean, unless we're talking about sports teams or something, there's no real rivalry between one state and another, and unless there's some kind of like, drug or crime problem or something. But each of the provinces in Canada, I've always kind of thought of as just a whole bunch of very friendly, separate countries. Is that at all an accurate way of looking at it?
In a little way, yeah. Like each province is, we're all Canadian, but we definitely have our own culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you go to the Maritimes and it's, a little bit more historical for them than it is out here. Like our history is really our own because a lot of us came out to the middle of nowhere where the only neighbors that you really had were the surrounding native population. So most of the time we were working things out with them as opposed to Ontario and Quebec because there wasn't a large population here. I think if my understanding is right, like the first people that came out here, there was like maybe 8 or 9 families in total. So we were an early British colony out here. It is the same for Saskatchewan and BC. It's just to different degrees. With us, we were just a farming province for the longest time. And I would say, in terms of our history, not that long ago, we discovered we had oil. And it was just one of those things where, we boomed. We boomed. This is the part where I have to get my graph out. But, we all our industry started off in Ontario and Quebec. They were the ones to first discover oil in Canada. And a lot of that was sold to you guys, and to majority of it went to the UK and England. And that was still during the period where we were a colony. And then they ran out of oil. Like they sold it. They didn't have a very big well in the first place. And then we come out here and between Saskatchewan and Alberta and the Northwest Territories, we've got the 3rd largest oil source in the world. So we provide energy for all of Canada. It's just getting it out there is the problem. Like we're using trains to transport our energy, or it goes through planes. They won't let us use our own boats to ship it anywhere.
Okay. Well, let's back up a little bit because I'm looking at this chart here, and just to get an idea of how the government works. So, now, do you guys elect your senators individually, or are those appointed?
We elect them.
Okay, and how are those apportioned? Because I'm looking at the chart here, and it says percentage of senators, and it's like Ontario and Quebec practically have half the political representation, even though they're only 2 of the several provinces. Is that correct?
Yes. That is correct. So how it works in our House, there are 338 seats in total. So just using my other chart, it actually tells you what the seats are. So Alberta has 34 seats in total. British Columbia has 42 seats in total. Manitoba has 14. New Brunswick has 10. Newfoundland has 7. Northwest Territories has 1. Nova Scotia is 11. Nunavut is 1. Ontario is 121. Prince Edward Island is 4, Quebec is 78, Saskatchewan is 14, and the Yukon is 1. So right there, the majority of the country is being dictated to by 2 provinces.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that reflects to this sort of the notion about our electoral college over here, and a lot of discussions about eliminating the electoral college and going to some kind of, popular vote thing where, because of the density of population, you'd have about 2 or 3 states in the country effectively guiding the opinions of the entire nation. So yeah, this seems a bit off balance. Just looking at this chart here, the other one you gave me, just looking at like if I'm taking a step back, just looking at the distribution of the numbers, it's just like everything's very divided politically, looks like, and yet the concentration of the numbers is all on 2 specific places. Now, does Ontario and Quebec, are they on the same page politically, or are they at disparate concerns?
So the first thing you need to know is Quebec is about Quebec.
Mhm.
So if Quebec knows that siding with Ontario is going to get them what they want, that's what they're going to do. To be quite frank, they really don't care who to go to. As long as they are Quebecois, they will vote for them.
What's Quebecois?
Quebec is the province.
Quebec.
Is the people living in.
Oh, okay, Quebecois. Yeah. Because I've always heard that Quebec wants to just be its own country and split from Canada because they're so French or Francophone sort of centric about the whole thing.
So for that one, I've been referring to Magic a lot because he's kind of the guy in the middle of Quebec. But my understanding is they've got a bunch of different parties as well. Like he told me last that there were 6 separate parties in Quebec. A lot of it also has to do with mafia. Like a lot of the mafia runs the government there too.
Jeez.
There's a lot in Quebec that, when you really look at it, there's a lot of it really is its own government. Like it is its own government in our country. But a lot of it is like they're very stubborn in their opinions. It's like as long as the guy in parliament is from their province, he could be saying anything and they'll vote for him.
Okay, so they're very, for lack of a better word, nationalistic in that respect.
Yes.
Okay, so all right, so you have 2 of the provinces that effectively dictate to the rest of the country. Those 2 provinces are concerned with their own affairs, and as long as they can get what they want for themselves, they don't really care about anybody else. And you've got, I assume from what you're saying, there's more than, I mean, we have just sort of by nature or default, I guess, a 2-party system effectively here. You guys have far more than that as far as I understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like chaos.
It is complete chaos. And the problem is right now, I'd say the biggest issue, and it's the one that you're not seeing being called out on, is the $600 million donation that Trudeau worked out with the media. Because right now you can read an article that's geared towards conservatives, but when you really start reading them one-to-one, you see this underlying, it's underlined. If you wanted to make someone out to be a clown, they're hiding it in those articles, and it's
or wearing it on their face with shoe polish.
Oh yeah, that too. It's one of those things where like you looking for honesty in our country is impossible, and both sides of them are doing it. Like I'm not saying the conservatives are any better than the liberals in that sense, but like the problem is finding out where the truth is. Right now, it's everyone looking into it, and everyone's looking into it, but nobody's talking to each other. And the ones who are the ones that are causing the problem. And to be quite frank, it's terrifying.
Okay, I feel like I'm missing. There's obviously a whole bunch of stuff I'm missing here because I'm not, a native. But our perception down here is that Canada is a very passive, friendly, peaceful, non-confrontational, sort of nation and general aesthetic about the whole thing. I've been to Canada a couple of times, just like, a couple of quick little visits kind of thing. It always seems very, very clean, very nice, very sort of, I don't want to say pastoral necessarily, but, just very, peaceful, let's say, for lack of a better word. But you're saying that this is all sort of a veneer over corruption and rot and everything else. Does the one help insulate the rest of the world from knowing about the other?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those things where Canada gets away with a lot of things that people wouldn't realize because a lot of places don't pay attention to us. It's one of those things where you pay attention to us to do business with us, and that's it. So internalized, we don't really tell people about our problems. We talk towards each other, but we wouldn't go to the US and say, hey, this shit's going on up here. Like, for one thing, our closet goes really deep. There are a lot of skeletons in there that, we just hide it. And this is the thing that we've been doing for such a long time. We try to work it out, but it's not going to happen. It's not really going to work. Like with the system we have in play, until they rearrange how we run our government, I don't think it's going to work because it's just going to loop into it again.
Okay, so all right, so you have all these differing agendas, but you've got two provinces that basically control everything. You got one province that basically is just its own nation inside of itself. Okay, let's start broad. What is the biggest, would you say, dividing point between the various factions at this stage of the game?
So from my end, it's going to end up being the pipelines.
Okay, so explain to us about what the pipelines are specifically.
Okay, so if you're wanting to go into the pipelines, just give me a second to pull up my article. Okay, so I think
we're talking about oil pipelines, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so those actually go a long ways. Like historically, it's been a contention with us since the get-go. And when you really understand how badly we were ripped off in the beginning, it kind of takes your breath away a little.
Real quick, thank you, Pincalo. First past the post is a terrible system. I don't disagree, being where I'm at. And he says, think Standing Rock, Scribe. Okay, so we got, so I'm assuming sort of conflicts between who owns the land where the pipelines are going to go, environmental concerns about the pipelines, respect to native lands kind of thing, and of course, who gets to control the money.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to the part where I talk about just a little bit of the past. I'm not, I'll do a separate stream on more in depth on it, because there's actually a lot of stuff here. But I'm going to focus on the Western alienation part, because it kind of explains a little bit better. Let me just share that with you too, because I think I wasn't necessarily going to use this one because it's long.
Okay, I mean, are you going to read the whole thing or something? Or?
Oh, no. I'll skip to the part. So I shared that in the private chat. So you just want to scroll down to Western alienation in Canada. Like everything else in here, there's a lot of numbers to go through here and break apart. So I'm going to explain the NEP real quick. So actually, yeah, you might have to go up a little bit for that one. So it says NEP and then NEP goals. No, sorry, NEP goals is the one.
I don't know what we're okay.
Okay. So this is history. We don't have this anymore, but there's kind of a similar situation in play. So so the NEP goals, this is the National Energy Program, which was later referred to as NOP. Nope. The goals of the program were security of supply and ultimate independence from the world oil market. Because at this point, you guys were still working with the Keynesian economics, and it was one of those things that it kind of affected a lot of people. Just saying, you guys sneezed and we got a cold. So it was an opportunity for all Canadians to participate in the energy industry, particularly oil and gas, and to share in the benefits of its expansion and fairness, with a pricing and revenue sharing regime that was supposed to meet all our needs. It was designed to promote self-sufficiency for Canada It was supposed to maintain our oil supplies, particularly for the industrial base in Eastern Canada. It's supposed to help, Canadians get their own energy industry, because the majority of our industries were actually owned by the Americans. We used to refer to our, if you were in Calgary and you were in downtown, it was referred to as the Red Square. So take that as you will. But the NEP was designed to promote our oil. The NEP petroleum gas revenue tax instituted a double taxation mechanism that did not apply to other commodities, such as gold, copper, anything that you're taking out of the ground. The program would redistribute revenue from the oil industry and lessen the cost of oil for Eastern Canada. In an attempt to insulate the Canadian economy for the shock of rising global prices, I tried asking my dad about Scarf, and he was just like, I don't remember that guy. I think he was pitching for us, but
Sorry, who?
There's a lot of guys in here that I don't remember, but I believe he was our environmental guy.
Okay. All right. So
sure.
I guess you're gonna have to break this down for me more simplistically. I can't read all of this right now. What exactly is the NEP doing in relation to the pipeline situation now?
Okay, so I'm gonna okay, okay, so what it was doing, it was extremely unpopular in Western Canada, especially for Albertans, where most of our oil was produced. The Albertans view NEP as a detrimental intrusion by the federal government into the provincial affairs. Scarf argued that Western Canada and Alberta by the federal government into the province's affairs. The NEP was perceived to be at their expense and benefiting the eastern provinces. Particularly vilified was Prime Minister Trudeau. Well, he was, whose Liberals didn't hold a seat west of Manitoba. The senior bureaucrat in the Trudeau Liberal government helped develop the National Energy Program, earning himself the monkey Red Ed in Alberta. And when Brian Mulroney took charge, he was fired.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So let's try to stay away from the articles. Just tell me sort of extemporaneously, like, so what is the NEP in relation to the pipeline? Like, what's the contention with the pipeline exactly? Just control of it, or
control of it?
Okay, so the government decides where the pipeline goes. The provinces aren't great about having the government tell them what to do with their land or their oil or their environment, and these two things kind of don't mix like oil and water.
Yeah.
Okay. And so but at the same time, each province wants to have control of their own oil and thus, have some kind of riches from it, I assume.
My dad actually gave me a good graph. Just give me a second.
Okay, well, I'll check the chat while you're doing that. Let's see. Diogenes, sorry, says it wasn't called Red Square because the Americans owned it, but because the government of Canada owned it. Okay. Pincalo says redistributable, to themselves. And Blind Press says, funnily enough, this whole NEP thing started with Trudeau Senior, and Junior just continued the screwing over. I'll say, for the sake of the stream, is to not on the off chance. I mean, I'm trying to see if this will be monetized or not. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm trying not to screw you over. I promise you. Mm-hmm. So my dad, this one I can't say with you because unfortunately my dad gave me some nice paper notes. But the way he explained it has to do with the percentages. And this is the thing that a lot of people aren't understanding. So just let me find it. Okay, so. So how it's working is the government is taking the money to make projects happen. And when you're paying for these projects, you're basically getting debt.
And this is the money from the oil sales, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So the way he's explaining it is right now, like say you're just doing like regular taxes. So right now, actually before, what our debt would be is like say your debt is starting at 100, and your interest is at 5%, and your taxes are 25. You're going to pay for that. Like, you're going to be able to work that out. Right now, what our debt is at is more like, say the percentage is 1,000. Our interest is at 50%, and then our taxes are at 50%. So what our taxes are actually paying for is our interest. We're not actually paying off our debt.
Okay.
So right now, what the Liberals are doing is they're asking us for money while they rack up our debt, and then our taxes aren't even paying off our debt. What they're actually doing is they're paying off our interest. And what we've been trying to propose is an ability to try to fix that problem. And what Trudeau has done is he's made it impossible for Albertans to do that.
How?
So with the C69 and the C48, so
The what? Okay, I assume this is legislation.
yes.
Okay. And what do these do?
Okay, so that's the part I have to find the other. All right. Sorry, my stuff is all over the place.
It sounds like it. Let's see here. Thank you, Pinkala the driver. If the U.S. paid us back the $4 trillion, we'd be good. Oh, so we owe you a bunch of money too? I didn't know that one.
A lot of people owe us money.
Sure. Well, the same over here too.
Okay, so.
Okay. Okay, so Trudeau has passed some legislation that is disallowing the Albertans from getting their fair share or fixing their debt to interest problem.
Yes.
Okay. Is that the short version?
I would say so. Yes. Actually,
Okay.
the last one of the last articles that I sent you, or not the last, I believe it was. It's basically a letter from Albertans to voters in Ontario. He does actually a really good job of explaining it as well.
Okay, well, and how about I read this then?
Yes, absolutely. You're better than me. I got more practice to do.
Okay, so an Albertan's letter to voters in Ontario and Quebec, and I think this should be up on screen.
Yes.
October 18th. Oh, this is just yesterday. All right. Dear Ontario and Quebec voters, on the eve of our Canadian federal election, I feel it is prudent to share with our fellow Canadians in the East how pivotal this election is for our country. I recognize a strong disconnect between the regions, and I believe I have a responsibility to share our feelings, perceptions, and fears with the men and women of these provinces. It is no secret that the election is decided before the first vote is counted in Manitoba. 199 of the 338 seats in the House of Commons are held by your two provinces. Your votes decide our election. This is why I'm appealing to you. The fate of Canada and our incredible province of Alberta rests in your hands. We've had a rough couple of years out here. Since 2015, unemployment has soared, the price of our most valued resource has plummeted, and our access to foreign and domestic markets has been blocked by federal Liberals. While this industry thrives south of the border in the U.S., Canada's energy sector has been plunged into a quote-unquote legislated recession, thanks in part to the cancellation of two crucial pipelines and the poorly handled expansion of a third. These projects are crucial, allowing access to foreign and domestic markets and closing the gap between the price of Canada's oil and the oil produced elsewhere in the world. The newly passed Bill C-69 makes new interprovincial projects nearly impossible to complete, and Bill C-48 restricts domestic tanker traffic on Canada's west coast, while U.S. tanker traffic navigates the same waters unimpeded. We've been put in a box, and the lid is slowly closing. Our federal Liberal government is the architect of this disaster. You may ask why this should matter to you. It is simply a matter of economics. According to the Alberta government and the World Bank websites, Alberta's economy accounts for 20% of our nation's GDP. In this province of 4.7 million, it means that 11% of Canada's population produces 20% of our GDP. From 2000 to 2014, we contributed $200 billion to Equalization, all of it traveled east. On its own, Alberta is the seventh largest economy on the planet. We're the core of this country's economic engine. We're being told our money is okay, but the oil, our largest economic driver, is not. Hell, we can't even wear our t-shirts on Parliament Hill. Okay. Alberta's oil is Canada's oil, and there are a few facts I would like to share with you about it. We are at the forefront of this sector's clean technology, and everyone in this country should be proud of this industry and the highest environmental standards in the world. During this election, I'm sure you've heard about ONG subsidies and how everyone intends on stopping them, so I feel it is important to break that down. Last year, there were $1.4 billion given to clean tech by our government. ONG received 75% of that, rightfully so. That money has been used to increase efficiency and reduce the carbon footprint of production significantly and create a technology that has eliminated the need for contentious tailing ponds. A recent study showed that if every country around the world produced their resources to the same standard as Canada, the carbon intensity of production would drop 26% worldwide. Suncor, Canada's largest producer, just announced a cogen project will reduce their carbon footprint by a further 30%, and we've championed cutting-edge carbon capture and storage technology. We would love to displace dirty foreign oil in the East, but we are told there is no social acceptability for a pipeline. We would love to know why there is social acceptability for Saudi tankers in your waters, but none for us. Last I checked, Saudi didn't contribute to equalization. The environment has been a big topic in this election, and there have been some strong assertions from the parties, some of which may be a little out of reach. 30% reduction in GHG, 60% reduction in GHG. Okay, I don't know what those are. The backbone of these reductions focuses on shutting Alberta's economy down. There seems to be a huge target on Alberta's back, and little red dots are starting to dance around the bullseye. Canada contributes 1.6% to the world's total GHG emissions. China contributes 27.2%, US 14.6%. A 30 to 60% reduction in Canada equates to a 1.8 to 3.6 reduction in China and a 3.5 to 7% reduction in the US. Al Gore once said that CO2 knows no borders, so rather than shut down the economic engine of our nation, why wouldn't we export the clean energy and technology to the countries that need it the most, boosting our economy and helping everyone on the planet reach these targets? What we do as Canadians to reduce emissions means nothing in the grand world scale. It is these heavy emitting countries that could benefit from Canada's LNG to replace coal and clean tech to further drive down emissions. It's a win-win for Canada, the environment, and our economy. The Conservatives have proposed this, and it has been highly criticized as not enough. This is the most viable solution and environmental policy for everyone in this country, and it doesn't include plunging the entire country into debt and recession. It is ironic that one country, the US, that pulled out of the Paris Agreement has made the most progress reaching that agreement's targets. How? By doing exactly what the Conservatives have proposed to help us and other nations achieve, transitioning coal to a significantly cleaner natural gas power generation. There is another sentiment out here that likely resonates with our fellow Canadians from Quebec. If you ask the average Albertan if they would support separation 2 years ago, you'd be laughed at. Today, it is no laughing matter. At the time of the provincial election only a few months ago, it was estimated that 50% of Albertans were open to separation. A poll of 6,000 plus Albertans only a week ago yielded the same results. We've been beaten into submission by the federal Liberals, and we continue to get kicked. Terms like Western alienation, Republic Alberta, and Wexit have become very common. All too often you see Liberal on October 21st, Separatist on October 22nd. This movement is real. I mean real. If another Liberal government is elected, even worse, a Liberal minority with the Green or NDP popping up, Alberta's energy sector will just board up the windows and go elsewhere. It'll be crippling for the entire nation. It is already crippling for Alberta. We can't take any more of this. We are the victims of a current legislated recession, and it will only get worse. Half of us want to leave now. More will want to leave if we continue to be exploited for our revenue and vilified for our industry. Alberta's separation would be a crushing blow to this country and its economy, but it doesn't have to be this way. Albertans are resilient, wholesome, hardworking people that have been happy to help our fellow Canadian citizens maintain a high standard of living. We're only asking for reciprocation. We don't want handouts, tax revenue, or power. We want the right and ability to do what we've been doing all along without having fellow Canadians standing in our way. We're a part of the solution, not the problem. Fellow Canadians, please consider this when casting your ballot. There's a lot at stake for everyone. There is a fragility in this nation that could be fractured with the stroke of a pen, and the power rests firmly in the hands of your provinces. Vote wisely, vote Canadian, signed Alberta. Okay, could Alberta exist on its own? I mean, we've had down here in America, Texas threatening to secede from the nation for a very long time. The problem is that if Texas became its own country, it could not support itself. How does this work in Canada?
So right now, Alberta, if we were to become our own country, we would be the top 7th most richest country. So, in
Yeah,
terms,
but but riches doesn't mean anything if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have a military, if you don't have the other resources you need to be able to trade effectively. So, could Alberta actually become independent?
I actually think we can. We do have some leaders right now. Let me just. I do have them. I'm following them on Twitter, so there are a few of them that I've actually joined to at least see what they're saying. Just because the fear is, I don't want to join like a fringe group, you know. But for a few of the guys that I've been following, there we go. So right now I'm following a group by Wexit. These guys aren't big on Twitter. Like, take into account, I don't know really where they're posting. They might be on Facebook or something.
And what does Wexit stand for in the case of this?
It means Western Canada. It means it's not going to just be our country. Like, it's not going to just be Alberta. Right now, there are people in both Saskatchewan and Manitoba who are probably as close to the 50% mark as you're going to get, if not going over, because they're being screwed over too. But right now, I've joined the Alberta Separatists, the Alberta Independents. There's a fellow by the name of Peter Downing. He's in Edmonton right now, and so far he has 109,000 people in his group running I believe he's part of the separatist group. Like, he's part of the official group in our province. And right now, all he's hearing is the same message. So what we're doing right now is we're looking to our coastlines to find out where we're going to go. So it's either going to be through the Northwest Territories, or it's going to be through the Yukon. Right now, between the Northwest Territories, that's probably where we're going to end up having to go, because they're kind of in the same boat, as in, like, they're getting a lot of their funding from us through Ontario. And a lot of what they do is what we do. But it's going to be one of those things where we're not sure if we're going to have to purchase the land to do that, or if we're going to have to figure out a way to, because as long as we can get our product to market, we're fine. You know, everything else we've already got the works to building. Like, we can do our own, we can make our own money, we can make our own military. We have all that infrastructure already here, so it's just really just carrying it on here. Unfortunately, I can't say anything about the Canadian vets. Like, I don't know where they would lean, because they're loyal to Canada, so they might not support us leaving. But we're already, we're kind of like, we lose so much money every year that we could direct towards ourselves.
Real quick, thank you, Cryptic. California is the world's 5th largest economy, and if they were to leave, they'd collapse due to the debt they own and the welfare they give out. Are there any such concerns for Western Canada?
Yes. Right now, I'm one of the few who, few I say, but it's more like 8% who are out of work in my province right now, and it's growing every day. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. It's just, it's been 4 years of it. So, like, right now, at this point, we can't afford to lose anything. Like, at this point, we don't really have a lot to lose. They've taken so much from us. Like, but for our infrastructure, I actually, for that, I'm actually a part of that program right now because of it. Like, it took me 3 years to actually get it. And we've had new programs start. Like, we have a new infrastructure for pot. All these things. Like, I've talked to a couple of those guys, and they're saying that if we split off, everything's going to stay the same. Like, over time, it might change. As we vote people in and we change our policies, some of that might change. But everything we have right now, legally, it's going to follow with us. So, like, people with debt, people who are retired, all that stuff, it's already done by our province anyway. Like, we actually do handle that through our own funding. So we could legitimately do it.
So if, okay, I'm just trying to think, because I'm trying to, like I say, I'm trying to relate what little I know about how our country works to that kind of thing. If you were to, essentially secession, if you guys were to secede, would you secede as a region or as individual provinces?
So that's the thing I can't say for sure. So like I'm hearing stuff from Saskatchewan and Manitoba who are like, oh yeah, we're going to join you right away. But legally, I don't know if they can do that all at once. Like I'm not sure if we're all going to have to do it individually. I think we have to by our constitution. We would have to, but the thing is for us to split apart, you have to have more than 50+1 votes. So right now, I can say for sure that it's a 57%, but that poll was small. I'm pretty sure if you went to every town and city in Alberta and did a poll door to door, you're probably looking closer to 65 to 75%. A lot of us feel like we can't speak out, like we can't say our own opinions. Because quite often we're accused of the same stuff that a lot of Americans are. Like, you know, I could start talking about my talking points, and automatically I'm ignorant of the subject. I don't study any science. I'm automatically a racist. I support bad people who pollute the environment. We're a bunch of bullies down here. All we care about is money, or cold people that don't care about the rest of Alberta, or people who are poor. You hear this kind of slander down here often enough as it is, but over the last 5 years, it's been concentrated. I think a lot of people don't understand how much. And it's one of those things where like it doesn't matter what kind of person I am. It really doesn't. I can have my own views, and the person I'm standing with can have their own views, be completely different looking from me, and it doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat. The amount of people that have been screwed over in this that they don't even pay attention to. Like there are natives who work for us, who work with us, who want to build their own infrastructure because the government more than half of the time screws them over. And then their own tribes screw them over. So they're like, we want to build our own business so we can help support our own communities. And now Justin Trudeau has shat all over them. Okay,
so let's say Alberta decides collectively or otherwise that they want to separate. Real quick, thank you, Pincalo. Separation is not the answer. We are all ignored. Well, I mean, I can understand that to a certain extent, but at the same time, if this particular province is doing all the work, you know, in the broad strokes, but not getting any of the benefits for it, you know, it's a matter. It's sort of like looking at it between: are we talking about an employee or are we talking about the corporation? And the corporation has certain needs that you know are unto themselves. So if Alberta wanted to separate, how soon could that happen? How would that happen? And wouldn't there be like massive amounts of pushback from the Canadian government? And how, when I think of like, you know, something like that happening, I could almost see the government trying to force it not to happen militarily or something. I don't know. I don't know what goes on up there.
So that is actually something that's been brought up to me quite often this week, because there's a lot of Canadians on the other side who are just taking the piss out of us for even talking about it. So the first thing is we have to address the people we have in charge in our province. So that's Jason Kenney. It's also our mayors. So there's Nemchi, and there's the fellow in Edmonton whose name I don't know because I kind of don't pay attention to Edmonton. For the record, if you want to invade Alberta, that's the city to go to. But we've pretty much told them flat out, if we have to wait over the next 4 years to vote them all out, we've already got the works and plans. So right now, everybody is looking at everybody who is in charge of my city right now. If you are on the Liberals, if you are an NDP, or if you're a Green Party, you're going to be voted out. The sentiment for that is as close as it's going to get. You're not going to have a 50-50. It's going to be more like a 70-80. Right now, we're telling Jason Kenney and we're telling Andrew Scheer that, like, if they can't win and work things out, we're going to have to vote them out. So, I mean, in that sense, it might take until 2024 before we start really getting things working. But right now, we're doing a referendum. That's coming from Jason Kenney. I think Andrew Scheer has a part in that too. But we've pretty much told Parliament that if they do this, we're not gonna be paying them taxes, flat out. Our taxes are going to remain in Alberta. If we have to cut off the pipeline, we're prepared to do that. We're going to shut it off, and you guys can go in the cold for a couple days and see how you really feel about it. It sounds really mean, but right now we're at the point where if we don't defend ourselves and take it seriously, you guys aren't going to.
Well, it sounds mean, but like I say, speaking pragmatically, it also sounds like, well, I could see it being framed as one of two things or both at the same time. A, an act of terrorism, or B, an act of war. Does that, I mean, and I'm not trying to be alarmist here or anything. I'm just sort of like, if I was the government and suddenly one of the states decided like, oh yeah, we're not going to pay taxes anymore and we're going to cut off essential resources from the rest of you to teach you a lesson, I don't see that not having
consequences.
Serious consequences. Thank you, Cryptic. We can trade you Regina for Oakland. Or Regina for Oakland.
So for that factor, believe me, I've been watching Spain a lot this week. I've been watching Hong Kong a lot this week. And it's one of those things where I'm looking around and I'm just like, are we really prepared for this?
Yeah.
So for that, I really don't know what our military would do. Some of them are from our province. A lot of them are from all three of our provinces. So some of them are possibly on our side. So some of them might come here and just do nothing and just pose as like a threatening force. I don't know about the rest. Like that's one of those things where like I wake up crying because I don't know if I'm going to be running away from people with batons, you know. I don't know what we're going to be facing. But at this point, it's kind of a fight for our livelihoods. And that's really sad from the country that's supposed to be about peacekeeping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that we've gotten to this point where 3 leaders are speaking for all of Canada. You know, flat out, I'm looking at my dad, and I'm sorry to be emotional about it, but I'm looking at my dad, and he lost his uncle fighting for the same war that all of you guys did. And you are throwing him under the bus. Why did we die for you? Why have we sacrificed so much of our time and our effort trying to work with you when you don't want to do the same? I know you do. I know you do. But you don't want to work with us. I know you do, Pink Hollow. But you guys are being screwed over too. I promise I'll have a chat with you. I mean, I'm not opposed to bringing people on. I don't want to get emotional or start arguments. This is about us talking because we're not seeing that from us, and it's causing a huge issue. And I've been loyal to Canada my whole life. I refer to the other provinces as extended family. Obviously, we're not related, but I would throw myself down under a bus to protect you if I thought it would. But at this point, I don't think you guys are doing the same, and you have no interest in it. You know, it feels that way.
All right, and I should predicate all this on that. This little chat is meant to be sort of a precursor, prequel, whatever you want to call it, to a hopefully a series of conversations that Jen's going to start doing over on her channel in the near future between Canadians to talk about Canadian issues, to try to hash things out. So, you know, I understand not everything is going to be covered today. We can't get to every issue that is pertaining to Canadians or get every opinion on here. But rest assured, there will be a platform for that in the relatively near future. Would you be okay with taking some questions now, Jen?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, before we do that, was there anything else, like any high-level point you'd like to get across, or anything else that we haven't, a point that hasn't been made yet or anything?
Just how sudden it's been. Like, there's so many things that our government has been doing that I really don't see. I don't see a lot of people pointing it out, except for like fringe groups like the Rebel. And I don't understand why we aren't protesting in the streets against our media, why we're not protesting against them bringing in Greta when it's during an election cycle, why we're not protesting against Obama influencing our elections in the last minute like he's done. Tyler wants me to explain to you what our equalization payments are.
Yes.
So.
Let's start there, because the Tyler's had that question for a good several minutes now. So what are equalization payments?
Let me just, I think I that was on the original article that I gave you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, let me just open it up.
Let's see. Was that the Wikipedia one?
Yeah, that was the Wikipedia one.
Apparently not that one. Nope. Was it the NEP article?
It was the bottom one. The
okay. Nothing called equalizations coming up, so I don't know.
Will gave it to me. I can find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, while we're waiting for that to figure itself out. So, guys, this is going to be Q&A time. So if you have questions for Jen, items that weren't brought up or not clarified as much as you could appreciate, put them in the chat now. We'll get to them. Put plenty of question marks afterwards, as per the Lords of the Night, so I know that it's a question for us and not a conversation taking place inside the chat, which is, of course, completely fine. Okay, so what's an equalization payment?
So we all have a pie. We all share a pie. So equalization payments in Canada. So I do have a wiki for it. So I'll post that in the chat. I'll post it for you too. Just let me.
Well, yeah, just put it in the show chat so everybody can see it.
Okay, so equalization payments in Canada. In Canada, the federal government makes equalization payments to provincial governments to help address fiscal disparities among Canadian provinces based on estimates of province fiscal capability. So, if you're only making cheese or like fishing in this province, you get equalization payments to make sure that you're living at the same standard.
Okay.
Their ability to generate tax revenues, a province that does not receive equalization payments is often referred to as a have province. Well, one that does is called a have not province. So you're making money or you're not making money. 6 provinces will receive $18.958 billion in equalization payments from the federal government. Equalization payments are one example are often collectively referred to in Canada as transfer payments, a term used in other jurisdictions to refer to cash payments to individuals. The purpose of equalization payments is to, like I said, it's to bring up the have-not provinces so that they're still living fairly decently. You're not going to be in a
so it's provincial welfare.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Diogenes says, why isn't the media bribery story a bigger issue? You mentioned something about $600 million or something for media or whatever.
Yeah, so it's actually, they rounded that up. So the number is closer to $585. So the way my dad explained it is that what Trudeau did is he offered it to them as a donation, but it was one of those type of donations where he could take it back.
Okay, whoa. Back up. Okay, so $588?
No, $585 million.
85 million. Okay, you didn't put the million on there. Sorry. And Trudeau gave it to who?
Every media source in Canada, except for the Rebel Media and the True North guys, got a payment.
And this money came from where?
It came from the taxpayer dollars through Trudeau.
Okay, so Trudeau gives a bunch of money to the media outlets in order to get good coverage, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, well, that failed spectacularly when his high school photos came out.
Yeah, well, he had no choice. There's been quite a few people. Well, it's mostly the Rebel. Let's be real. It's the Rebel who goes after him about it because nobody else has.
Because they don't have any interest in it. They're going to get more money out of it.
That's the problem. What he's done is he's offered them this money and said, "Here, you can have this money, but if you talk shit about me, I'm going to take it back."
Well, but why would they? I mean, were there any outlets that refused the money? Because that is
the Rebel.
So. Well, okay. The Rebel is the only one in Canada that refused the money.
Yes.
So CBC, all those guys, they took money.
They took money.
And no one on their ethics boards or anything journalistic or otherwise thought maybe that was a bad move for the credibility?
Yes. The thing is this is the problem I'm having is finding the whistleblowers, but they've had a few, every single one of them have had a whistleblower.
Mhm.
The problem is I don't know what's happened there. Like nobody's speaking out. They got caught in the act. Their hands are very filthy right now. And it's been proven.
So you have a government-controlled media. Yeah, this doesn't sound like the image of Canada that I had in my head before we started talking. It sounds like a very friendly corruption going on up there.
There is. It's one of those things where, like, everywhere that you've seen Trudeau going for his visits, I do not doubt, and I mean this is probably me theorizing, so don't take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
But everywhere he's gone, he's taking notes. He's taking notes on how it is to go about doing this, because everything he's doing screams that. Like, I'm not taking this as a topic point, but I'm just using it as example. Is the Extinction Rebellion and Greta. That he's been over there talking to them. There's no reason why we should have those groups all over the planet. The fact that they're in our country right now, when we're in the middle of an election, they're paid for. There's no doubt in my mind that they're paid for. They're shills, and they're dangerous ones. All of these things are popping up in my country all at the same time, and it's overloading people's minds is what it's doing. Like, they've thrown out so much information all at once, and it's all gobbledygook.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Point Curation. The Federal Conservative Party, the Liberals, and NDP might as well be on one team. All are progressive as opposed to conservative, and globalist as opposed to nationalist. Consider voting PPC.
I agree with you, Point Curation, but the fact is that they've tanked him. As far as I can tell, Maxime Bernier has been tanked. Only reason they have to go after him is because of one talking point, and it's to do with their immigration problem. And that's another problem, but that's more to do with Quebec than Alberta. Like, we do have a problem, but it's really concentrated in the Maritimes, and it's something that's not really being discussed, because if you discuss it, you're automatically a racist. It does not matter if you actually have views that are more like, actually, we're screwing over a lot of people right now, and you're bringing in more people that you're screwing over. Especially the people who aren't refugees, who aren't prepared for what you're bringing in. We're being really irresponsible right now. But me saying that automatically puts me in the list of, oh, well, you just hate brown people, which is disgusting.
So now the election is what, today or?
It's Monday.
Monday. Okay.
Yeah, that's why we're saying, like, Monday the 21st.
Oh, right.
Going in to vote for Canada.
Right.
And there's a good chance. I really don't know what's going to go on. Like, I've already made plans on my own to go down on the 22nd to our Parliament building. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to walk around with a cell phone and just see what people are doing or saying. But I'm prepared to see riots. Sorry.
Okay. So is there an expectation right now that Trudeau is just going to win?
Yes.
Okay. There's not much notion that somebody else might come in. Are any of the other candidates a more ideal choice given the circumstances than Trudeau, do you think?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I was distracted by Tyler.
Are any of the other candidates besides Trudeau a more ideal choice in your opinion? Even though, I mean, pie in the sky, they're not going to win. But if things lined up, is there somebody currently running that would be your choice elsewise?
So right now, I know. Okay, so if it was my choice, I would go with Maxime. And I'm actually saying a lot, because Maxime used to be the guy in Quebec that wanted to split up Quebec. But he's the only one that I've seen out of every party who's had every point that is directed that actually looks like it's going to help everybody. But he's got no chance. Like, if you look at his numbers, aside from like the invisible ones I don't know about, he's not going to have enough to do a swing. And the problem with Andrew Scheer is he's too centrist. He is so much more like a Trudeau light that we're not really getting a conservative. The problem is a lot of our conservatives are really old, and they don't really follow the news. A lot of it up here is, like I said, they're going through everything and they're picking out the stuff that they can see is true, and everything else they're just like, I don't know, it could be garbage, it could be true. So they're voting for Scheer, and Scheer is no longer willing to talk to Bernier. The other three parties are part of the problem as well, because they're all fighting with each other. But at the same time, though, if them ganging up on us gets us out of power, they're willing to do it. And the problem is we're afraid of having either an NDP or a Green Party as a coalition with the Liberals. Because they're going to tank us so much worse than we are right now.
All right. Thank you, Point Curation. Mass immigration hurts today's immigrants too. I don't want tomorrow's Canadians to be replaced. Canada is disintegrating. That sounds a lot like the arguments going on in Britain right now, or has been the last several years. Okay, let's get back to questions. Pinkala says, what's your take on the abortion debate? Should it be reopened, or are the libs just pining for votes?
So the Liberals are pretty much sticking their fingers in their ears, and a lot of them are saying la 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 la. If that answers that.
Okay.
So right now, they're not willing to talk to us at all. They will talk to the NDP. They are talking to the Green Party, but as far as they're concerned, they want to be the ones in charge. It's kind of the same for the NDP and the Green. But the Green, honestly, she's just going to go with whoever's going to win and whoever's going to give her a voice, because she's crazy. Whereas the NDP guy, he's going with a different. He's going with a more racist kind of vibe.
About abortion?
No, he wants to bring Sikh headwear into Parliament, and he thinks that because we're like, can you maybe not leave? Can you leave the religious stuff at home? He's automatically calling us racist for it.
Well, Pinkala's question was about abortion debate. He was asking, what's your take on the abortion debate? Should it be reopened, or are the libs just pining for votes?
Well, they probably are. I mean, you are going to get some Liberals who will vote for it. Like, there's already Liberals who are so paranoid that Andrew Scheer is going to put gay people in the concentration camps. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't an issue too, that they've made up.
Okay. Point Curation, thank you. Also, thanks for speaking your mind, Jen.
Oh, thank you. I mean, like I said, I feel the conversation needs to be had. Like, even if you have points that I haven't read, I don't mind you throwing them at me. I want to start a dialogue from both sides so we can actually come to a conclusion. Because right now, I have to defend my own. You know, if I have to leave to do that, you know, I'd rather not. Because I do, like I said, I do see Canada as my family, but my immediate family has to come first.
Quinn the Cultist has a couple of sort of America to Canada comparisons. Do Canadians have some sort of Second Amendment equivalent, and do you have the freedom of speech?
It's not the same. It's not the same anymore. Like, it's not really handled in the same way as like the UK. What it is if you can prove in court that you've been discriminated against, and believe me, they will take your side on almost everything. You can go to jail. You'll probably get fined first, but if you don't pay the fine, you'll go to jail. So freedom of speech up here, it's like, no, not really, no.
Okay. And do you guys have a right to bear arms and gun ownership and that kind of thing?
Yes, we do, but it's different. We do have stronger. Well, it does look like stronger regulation up here. I don't actually have the guns. My dad owns a gun. So you can have concealed carry. It is possible to have stuff like that. Most people who have guns are usually people who live like in remote places, or they're people who go to gun ranges. So we do have quite a few people who do that. And they want to get rid of all guns because, well, you know, that's what Liberals do. So there is actually an issue with that. They are trying to come for the guns, and it's actually an issue for people who don't live in the big cities the most. Like if you live in a small farm off of the city, and say you get robbed, or maybe you're dealing with coyotes or something, you're gonna have a gun for that, because the cops aren't gonna make it to your house for like 20 to 30 minutes. So yeah, but the thing is though, if you overstep your boundaries in court, it's a very thin line. Like most people who've been caught defending themselves usually end up the ones getting charged. So,
okay. Let's see. We'll just take a few more questions here. Jay Poitras says, Genti Maxi, now you understand what Newfoundland had to deal with in the 90s. They just changed the punching bag.
We've been dealing with that since the 70s, actually before the 70s. So, I mean, we understand. Like, I understand entirely. Like, there's a real problem in our country, and it needs, like, they really should have set us up. I hate going to the U.S. for this one, but we really should have had proper representation from each of our provinces. If our Senate was like 26 people, where like every province and Northwest Territory had 2 people representing them, it would actually make a lot more sense. But we're not set up that way, and it shows. Tyler actually says you can't unless they're handguns that were made before February 14th. So for the conceal and carry. Thanks for pointing that out. Like I said, like I don't own a gun myself. Most of my time was spent at the archery range, so that's a different weapon.
Let's see. Renovation says, when I was a law student, Canada used to be the poster boy for law reform and rational open legal discourse. Now it has become an example of politically driven hive cult mentality and show trial tribunals. Let's see. Point curation. Oh, he's talking to Pink Hollow. Sorry. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about here because everybody in the chat is going all over the place with different issues and different things in Canada. And I'll tell you what, I had imagined this conversation for myself was going to go much, much differently because I was thinking I'd be asking about Jordan Peterson or something. But I had no idea that Canada's 3 steps away from becoming, separated states or something. And so when is Alberta going to petition the U.S. to take it on as the 51st state?
To be honest, from my perspective, I would say we're not going to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
So the first thing is we want to do things hopefully in the best way we can with Canada. If anything, we probably want to be our own country for a little bit because historically it's going to be our first time being our own country. So I think for the first while, we're probably going to want to handle our own, see how we work out. In all honesty, if we do go to the U.S., it's probably more along the lines of, well, we're going to get a better deal with you than anything else because you have your own coastline for one thing, and you need oil. So,
yeah.
But we honestly do want to try to do our best to try to improve things for our own first, but it has to start with our province. We really have to grow some balls and just tell people to piss off when they're,
All right. Thank you, Cryptic. Why does Canada make it harder for Americans to visit and work than have illegals come and live? Heck, even the Chinese are buying you up.
Probably because we've been douchebags for a really long time. I'm not going to lie. There's kind of an underlying hate for the U.S., and I honestly don't understand it half the time like I do when I don't. For me, I have a lot of family all over the world, so I don't take anything you guys say personally. It's kind of like, well, they're our big brother, and of course they're going to pick on us, right? So, but there's an underlying hate. I think a lot of it has to do with the reason we fought in the earlier wars. Take into our account, Alberta wasn't really a part of that. We kind of came out here because I think we were really escaping everything else. At least from my perspective, looking at my family. He kind of looked like he was saying "fuck you" to all of you, but we came out here and we had nothing, so we weren't really a part of that. But it kind of stretches out here. It's one of those things where like every time we invent something, it's like, oh look, we invented something, and you guys are like, well, let's take that and make it better.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. That's what happens when you have more money.
Well, I'll tell you, this is obviously a much, much, much more complex conversation than we can sort of encapsulate here. So yeah, again, guys, this is just sort of like the beginning. This is just to whet your collective appetites for what Jen is planning to do over on her channel in the near future, with having conversations between various Canadians to talk about the issues going on up there. I know that I've had an eye or two opened on things I had no idea was going on, and just how sort of chaotic and contentious things up are in the our neighbor to the north. Jen, can people contact you on Twitter to ask you about things, or to try to figure out if maybe they could come talk to you on one of your streams or whatever?
Absolutely. I'm actually having a problem with that because, like, the beginning of the week, I had like a load of people being like, "I want to be on your stream." Right now, the problem is I'm finding schedules. So if you DM me and you give me your name, I will contact you and we will work something out, because I want to give everyone a chance to come on and talk. Even if I don't know shit, I would like you to come on and talk, because I'm learning too, and I feel like the more we talk, the better we're going to feel. A lot of our problems are we're passive aggressive people, so we kind of internalize things until we blow up.
Mhm.
That's not healthy. Not healthy.
Well, that sounds like that seems to be reflected in the current boiling over possible separation, as things have been sitting around for so long, and now it's going to not literally, hopefully, but figuratively explode in the near future. Yeah, guys, I put Jen's Twitter handle in the description, and be sure to follow her on Twitter, and keep an eye on my Twitter as well, obviously, because once she gets her show going, I'll be sharing that stuff as well in case you want to go watch. Yeah, like I say, I'm sitting down here thinking Canada's just got some sort of tabloid level problems with their prime minister having been socially, racially insensitive in his high school days, but no, there's actually sounds like there's a lot more stuff going on, which will have to be expanded upon. Anything else you want to say before we split for the day?
I just want to reiterate, thank you for helping me out with this, because this kind of kicked me in the butt 2 weeks ago, and my friend Will's been telling me, "Oh, somebody lit your butt on fire," and I'm like, I don't like that they did. So, just so you guys know, I was not prepared to do this. I was more of a gamer person, but right now I'm one of those people who's kind of scared. You know, I'm a little bit in mourning. I've also joked about wearing black for a couple of days, but I'm not one of those kooks, you know. So I really appreciate you guys coming in and helping me, and I appreciate you showing me what to do a little bit. So,
like I say, I'm happy to help. There's an old phrase. I believe I'm stealing from a movie, but as long as we're talking, we're not fighting. So if conversations you can have with other Canadians can start something, or sort of give people a pressure valve before things get too out of hand, that can only be helpful. So as things proceed, I wish you all the luck. And guys, be sure, if you have anything you'd like to talk to Jen about, be constructive and help out, because I think it'll be beneficial for all around. I know, guys, this is a very sort of condensed version of things, and there's a lot going on, but there's only so many hours in the day, so to speak. So again, follow Jen on Twitter. Keep an eye on my Twitter as well. And as soon as I get information from Jen about when and where her shows are going to be, I'll be sure to put that out on Lords of the Night and my Twitter as well. So
can I say one more thing? So just so you guys know, over the weekend, I'm probably going to do a lot of random streams. It's really just about getting people to talk to me and set up the groups. Like, I can't say a schedule right now for sure. Like, for future reference, I will talk to you about what I'm going to do in that sense. It's just because right now it's so close to our election. I'm just going to be posting in Discord and on Twitter as well. So.
Okay, well, be sure to tag me in your tweets about what shows you'll be on, and I'll make sure that gets out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, hey, Jen, thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate you taking the time out to talk about these things.
No, thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. Keep in touch with Jen, and be sure to comment on here. I'm sure she'll be keeping an eye on it. I will be as well. And we'll see. Maybe we'll do a follow-up stream on Canadian politics a few months from now after the election has cooled some, and we'll see where things are in the country. But either way, everybody have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday on Satsu's. Well, actually, no, wait. Taking that today's. I always do these shows on Sunday, so my brain was kind of like, today's Sunday. No, wait, it's Saturday. I will see you all tonight on maybe Monkey's channel or maybe Satsu's channel. Depends if Monkey gets home in time from his little trip thing. So keep an eye on Twitter. We'll let you know which one it's going to be. Either way, bye, guys. Say bye, Jen.
Bye. Be there, be square.